London. The night of September 2nd, 1666. Wind swept through the narrow streets. Houses stood close together. The air was dry. The city slept. In a small bakery on Pudding Lane, a single spark ignited. The fire caught the wooden beams. Smoke curled up from the rooftop. This was no small fire. 4 days later, almost all of London lay in ashes. Over 13,000 homes had collapsed. 80% of the city was reduced to cinders. Panic swept the people. Crowds fled. In chaos, no one expected it. A single spark had become the inferno that devoured a capital. What happened? Why couldn't anyone stop it? This is the story of the Great Fire of London, the worst blaze in England's history. A disaster that changed the city forever. London, in the year 1666, the capital of England, was a growing city. But behind its prosperity was a ticking time bomb. Most houses were built of wood. The walls were dry and decaying. The thatched roofs pressed close together. The streets were so narrow that rooftops from opposite houses nearly touched. There was no fire safety system. Firefighters. No water pipes. When a fire broke out, people passed buckets of water from hand to hand, a faint hope in a sea of flames. That September, the weather was unusually dry. The sun had blazed for weeks. Strong winds from the River Thames helped the fire spread faster than anyone could imagine. To make things worse, the plague had just ended a year earlier. The city was still panicked and uncertain. Everything was brittle, flammable, and no one was prepared. On that day, there was no alarm, no warning signs. No one knew where the disaster had begun. Just a single spark falling from the bakery oven. Day 1, Sunday, September 2nd, around 1 a.m., the oven in Thomas Farriner's bakery was smoldering. A servant smelled smoke. When she opened the basement door, the flames had already reached the wooden loft. The Farriner family escaped through the rooftop, but one maid couldn't get out. She became the first victim. The fire spread quickly with the wind. Entire row of houses caught fire. People cried for help, but the watchmen didn't dare to tear down buildings. The law at the time said whoever destroys another's home must repay its full value. The authorities hesitated, but the fire didn't wait. Day 2, Monday, September 3rd, the flames passed St. Magnus Church. They reached the great market and warehouses along the River Thames. Wine cellars caught fire. Wooden barrels exploded. Sparks flew onto nearby rooftops. Alcohol vapor filled the air, making the flames twice as hot. The people panicked. Crowds rushed to flee the city center. Looters appeared. A city was collapsing physically and morally. Day 3, Tuesday, September 4th, rumors spread fast. Some claimed it was a foreign plot. Others said it was God's punishment. People attacked anyone they suspected. A Frenchman was killed just for carrying a magnifying glass. They thought it was a fire-starting device. Fear made people cruel. King Charles II finally intervened. He ordered his soldiers to use gunpowder to demolish buildings and stop the fire. But it was too late. Strong winds carried embers across the river, setting the south bank ablaze. Day 4, Wednesday, September 5th, at dawn, the wind changed. Light rain began to fall. The fire weakened. People covered the ashes with dirt. The city fell silent. London was no longer London. More than 13,000 houses were destroyed. Nearly 90 churches reduced to rubble. Hundreds of thousands left homeless. No one knows how many truly died. The poor, the old, the sick, many were burned alive, their names never recorded. This wasn't just a fire, it was annihilation. When the fire died, the city no longer recognized itself. Over 80% of London was destroyed. More than 13,000 homes were gone, reduced to ash and rubble. Around 80,000 people were left homeless. They slept in parks, on boats, beneath the arches of bridges. There was no relief system, no reconstruction plan. People had to fend for themselves. Markets, banks, churches, libraries, all gone. Trade collapsed. Hunger spread. Despite the massive scale of the disaster, only 8 official deaths were recorded. But historians believe the real number was much higher. Many victims were never identified, never found. They burned with their homes and their names. Yet from the ashes, a new London began to rise. The city was redesigned. Buildings had to be made of brick. Streets were widened. Fire regulations were introduced. Architect Christopher Wren redesigned St. Paul's Cathedral, became the new symbol of a reborn London. The fire of 1666 was a catastrophe, but also a turning point. From chaos came order. From ruin came renewal. No one expected that a single spark could burn down an entire capital. No one imagined that an unknown bakery would become the starting point of one of the greatest urban disasters in European history. And no one thought that a devastating fire could open a new era for that city. The Great Fire of 1666 destroyed London, but it did not destroy the spirit of its people. They did not keep blaming forever, did not remain buried in the ashes. They stood up and rebuilt. Every brick, every roof tile, every blueprint was proof of a nation's resilience. Today, London is one of the strongest cities in the world. Beneath the concrete, beneath the wide boulevards, the old ashes still rest. Ashes of a lesson. When negligence meets the perfect moment, and silence meets the perfect wind, a single spark is enough to burn everything down. History gives no warning. It leaves only ashes and questions. And that question, even today, still lingers in the glow of London's night fire. The Great Fire of London, 1666, when a city fell asleep and woke up in flames.